Picture this: two nations that have never directly fought a war, separated by over 1,000 miles of land, locked in what might be the most dangerous shadow conflict of our time. One possesses nuclear weapons. The other is racing to build them. And caught in the middle, the United States, playing a role that's far more complicated than most people realize. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you understand Middle Eastern politics. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we dive deep into the geopolitical stories that shape our world. Today, we're tackling one of the most misunderstood conflicts in modern history, the tension between Iran and Israel, and how America became the third player in this dangerous game. This isn't just ancient history or religious conflict. This is about power, oil, revolution, and decisions made decades ago that are still threatening global stability today. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's unpack this together. Here's something that surprises most people. Iran and Israel weren't always enemies. In fact, they were once allies. Hard to believe, right? But back in the 1950s and 60s, when the Shah of Iran ruled the country, Iran and Israel had diplomatic relations, traded with each other, and even cooperated on security matters. The Shah saw Israel as a useful partner in a region dominated by Arab nationalism. Israel saw Iran as a non-Arab Muslim country that could provide a strategic counterbalance. It was a pragmatic friendship in a complicated neighborhood. America's role during this period was straightforward. The United States supported both countries as bulwarks against Soviet influence during the Cold War. We sold weapons to both. We maintained intelligence relationships with both. Iran, under the Shah, was one of America's closest allies in the entire Middle East, right alongside Israel. The Shah was modernizing Iran, buying American military equipment, and keeping oil flowing to Western markets. Then came 1979, and everything changed. The Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah and brought Ayatollah Khomeini to power. This wasn't just a change in government. It was a complete transformation of Iran's identity and foreign policy. The new Islamic Republic was founded on anti-Western, anti-imperialist principles. Khomeini called America the Great Satan and Israel the Little Satan. The country that had been America's ally became America's adversary almost overnight. Why did this matter so much? Because the revolutionaries had a long memory. For decades, the United States had supported the Shah, even helping orchestrate a coup back in 1953 that overthrew Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, after he nationalized Iran's oil industry. To many Iranians, America had stolen their democracy and installed a dictator who ruled with an iron fist. The revolution was partly about reclaiming sovereignty from what they saw as American imperialism. And then came the hostage crisis. In November 1979, Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. This crisis dominated American politics, destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency, and created a wound in U.S.-Iran relations that has never healed. For Americans, Iran became synonymous with radical Islamic extremism and anti-American hatred. The battle lines were drawn. Meanwhile, Israel and Iran went from friends to enemies. The new Iranian government rejected any relationship with Israel, which it refused to recognize as a legitimate state. Iran began supporting Palestinian groups and other organizations opposed to Israel's existence. This wasn't just rhetoric. Iran started providing money, weapons, and training to groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and later Hamas in Gaza. These proxy forces became Iran's way of challenging Israel without direct confrontation. During the 1908 ES, something fascinating happened that shows just how complicated these relationships really are. Iran and Iraq went to war, a brutal 8-year conflict that killed hundreds of thousands. Iraq was led by Saddam Hussein, who was backed by most Arab states and the Soviet Union. You'd think America would support Iran's enemy, right? Well, we did. Publicly, but secretly, America also sold weapons to Iran in what became known as the Iran-Contra affair. Why? To fund anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua and potentially secure the release of American hostages in Lebanon. It was a scandal that showed how American policy in the region was often contradictory and driven by multiple competing interests. Israel, meanwhile, also secretly sold weapons to Iran during the Iran-Iraq War. Why would Israel help its enemy? Because Iraq was seen as the bigger threat at the time. There's an old Middle Eastern saying, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Both Israel and Iran saw Saddam Hussein as a dangerous adversary, so they pragmatically cooperated despite their ideological opposition. This is the kind of complexity that rarely makes it into simple narratives about the region. But as the 1990s and 2000s arrived, the Iran-Israel conflict intensified. Iran's nuclear program became the focal point. Iran insisted its nuclear program was purely for peaceful energy purposes. Israel and the United States believed Iran was working toward building nuclear weapons. For Israel, this was an existential threat. A nuclear-armed Iran, led by leaders who questioned Israel's right to exist, was unacceptable. America's role became one of trying to prevent Iran from getting the bomb while supporting Israel's security. We imposed sanctions on Iran, isolated them diplomatically, and worked with allies to constrain their nuclear ambitions. Behind the scenes, there were covert operations. Computer viruses like Stuxnet, widely believed to be a joint U.S.-Israeli operation, sabotaged Iranian nuclear centrifuges. Iranian nuclear scientists were assassinated in operations that bore the hallmarks of Israeli intelligence. This brings us to one of the most controversial moments in recent history, the 2003 Iraq War. When America invaded Iraq and toppled Saddam Hussein, we fundamentally altered the balance of power in the region. Iraq had been a counterweight to Iranian influence. With Saddam gone and Iraq's military destroyed, Iran suddenly had much more freedom to extend its influence. The new Iraqi government was dominated by Shia Muslims with close ties to Iran. American policy, intended to promote democracy and eliminate a dictator, inadvertently strengthened Iran's regional position. Israel watched all this with growing concern. Iran was now supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon to Israel's north, Hamas in Gaza to the southwest, and had influence over the Iraqi government to the east. Syria, another Iranian ally, sat on Israel's northeastern border. Israel found itself increasingly surrounded by Iranian influence and proxy forces. Then came the Obama administration and the Iran nuclear deal in 2015. This was a massive diplomatic achievement, but also deeply controversial. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, as it was formally called, lifted many sanctions on Iran in exchange for strict limitations on its nuclear program and intensive international inspections. The Obama administration argued this was the best way to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons without going to war. Diplomacy over conflict. But Israel and many American conservatives vehemently opposed the deal. They argued it gave Iran too much sanctions relief, didn't address Iran's ballistic missile program or support for terrorist groups, and only delayed, rather than prevented Iran's path to a bomb. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even gave a controversial speech to the U.S. Congress opposing the deal, breaking protocol by coordinating with Republicans without informing the Democratic president. When Donald Trump became president, he withdrew from the Iran deal in 2018, calling it the worst agreement ever negotiated. His administration implemented a maximum pressure campaign with crushing sanctions designed to force Iran back to the negotiating table for a better deal. Iran responded by gradually violating the nuclear deal's restrictions and becoming more aggressive in the region. This period saw increasing direct confrontation. Iranian forces and proxies attacked oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. Iran shot down an American drone. America assassinated Qasem Soleimani, Iran's most powerful military commander, in a drone strike in Iraq in January 2020. Iran retaliated with ballistic missile attacks on American bases. We came closer to direct war than at any time since 1979. Throughout all of this, America's support for Israel remained constant, even as tactics and strategies shifted between administrations. We provide Israel with billions in military aid every year. We share intelligence, we coordinate on regional security, and we use our veto power at the United Nations to protect Israel from international criticism and sanctions. For American policymakers, support for Israel is driven by multiple factors: shared democratic values, domestic political considerations, including support from both Jewish and Christian communities, strategic interests in having a reliable ally in a volatile region, and genuine security concerns about Israel's survival. But here's what makes this so complicated. American interests and Israeli interests don't always perfectly align. Israel sometimes wants America to take more aggressive action against Iran than American presidents are willing to take. Different administrations have different approaches. Some prioritize diplomacy, others prefer pressure and deterrence. The relationship is close, but not without friction. Today, the conflict continues to evolve. Iran has never stopped its nuclear program, and estimates suggest they could have enough enriched uranium for a bomb within months if they chose to pursue one. Israel has made clear repeatedly that it will not accept a nuclear Iran and reserves the right to act militarily to prevent it. Iranian proxies continue to threaten Israel from multiple directions. The recent expansion of the Abraham Accords, where several Arab nations normalized relations with Israel, was partly motivated by shared concern about Iranian regional ambitions. So where does this leave us? The Iran-Israel conflict, with America deeply involved, represents one of the most dangerous fault lines in international relations. It's a conflict shaped by revolution and counter-revolution, by nuclear ambitions and security fears, by proxy wars and covert operations. It's a conflict where the United States has played peacemaker and weapon supplier, diplomat and warrior, often simultaneously. Understanding this conflict means understanding that there are no simple good guys and bad guys, no easy solutions, and no policies without costs. It means recognizing that decisions made decades ago, like supporting the Shah or overthrowing Saddam Hussein, have consequences that ripple forward through time. It means seeing how regional powers compete for influence, how domestic politics shapes foreign policy, and how the pursuit of security can sometimes create more insecurity. The question going forward is whether diplomacy can create a sustainable framework that addresses everyone's core concerns: Iran's desire for respect and sovereignty, Israel's need for security and survival, and America's interest in regional stability and non-proliferation. Can these three nations find a way to coexist without constant crisis? Or are we locked into an endless cycle of escalation and confrontation? These are the questions that will define Middle Eastern politics for years to come, and the answers will affect not just these three countries, but global oil markets, international security, and potentially whether we see another major war in the Middle East. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I know this was a deep dive, but these complex issues deserve more than surface-level analysis. What do you think? How should America approach the Iran-Israel conflict going forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing different perspectives. If you found this valuable, smash that like button and subscribe for more geopolitical breakdown. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you want to support the channel and get access to exclusive content, check out the link to our Patreon in the description. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.